Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 435.
AEG.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Tom and I run through some recent releases, including games about railroading, mowing lawns, scoring goals, and holding hands. We work through some more questions from the mailbag, and then we ponder the meaning of the word Alderac with our top 10 games from AEG. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Matt Lauer to my Savannah Guthrie, Tom Vassell. AEG, right?
Yes. I know who Matt Lauer is.
Yeah.
I don't know who Savannah Guthrie is.
That's his co-host on the Today Show.
Doesn't he have 3 co-hosts?
Well, she's the primary co-host. Then there's the weather co-host and the news co-host.
Is it? Wait. I know one of their guys' names. The one guy lost a lot of weight.
Al Roker?
Al Roker. Who's he?
Well, he's the weather guy.
How long has Savannah been his co-host?
I don't know, a couple years.
Okay, well then it's been like a long, long time since I've seen the show. Not having cable TV, I don't watch morning shows or anything.
It's our like morning routine, so I see the pair of them smiling at me every morning. Except
and all
on
those
Fridays.
people standing around holding signs in cold New York.
Yes, and screaming at the camera, I've been waiting 6 years to stand outside of the cold to be on the Today Show, yeah!
Why would you have to wait that long? Can't you just go do it any day of the week?
Well, not if you live thousands of miles from New York City.
All right, folks. I'll give Geek Gold to the first person who holds a Dice Tower sign up.
Oh, man.
Around that.
That would be cool.
Actually, I'll send you a pair of dice.
There you go. Yeah, that's worth it.
Folks, this show is sponsored, or a shout-out from one of our Kickstart backers, Michael. And he wanted to do a shout-out to the Red Gamers of Target headquarters in downtown Minneapolis. That sounds cool.
Are they, like, play-testing all the games that go on the shelves?
I do not know.
Ooh.
Who else we got?
Rob wants to shout out to the KC Game Fair and KantCon, K-A-N-T Con, in Kansas City.
KantCon. So, can you have CanCont?
CanCont or ConCant?
I'm starting to get confused.
CantCon can't?
If you're out there trying to start a convention, folks, it can be very difficult because you're trying to think of a pun. Most of the puns have been taken.
The puns are all gone. You might as well just call it, Franklin Town Convention.
Hey, speaking of cons, we have secured our booth for GenCon.
We have, and they just released news that they're expanding into the football stadium.
That's what I was going to say, but yes!
Yes!
But even better news, they're sending True Dungeon to the football stadium.
That's where it's going to be. Well, that's great. That's actually perfect because it gives them room to expand. It sort of sets them apart and makes it more of a destination, and it opens up more of the primary convention space for exhibitors and events and all sorts of cool stuff.
They added a good chunk on the exhibit hall. I just got the updated map.
Yeah?
It's a good chunk. You're never going to make it through. Just give up. We're going to have water and snacks at our booth so you can survive.
Is it going to go all the way around the corner now? Like, I want to see a map.
I'll have to email the map to you, Eric. It looks like it doesn't go any longer. You're right. It goes around the corner. It's pushing very far into that gaming room. You know where the Magic the Gathering area was?
Yeah.
That was right outside where we would step outside to walk so you could go quicker?
Right.
Yeah, that area is all exhibit hall now.
That's now exhibit hall. Okay.
So this is interesting. I really was starting to think that GenCon was like turning a deaf ear to all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But apparently they were not. Because everyone kept saying, there's a stadium there. You can use the stadium. Use the stadium.
Well, not when One Direction was there.
Yeah, and also we don't always know everything behind the scenes, right?
Right.
it's easy to say, well, why don't you do this? And when you don't really know what's going on.
So do we know our booth location, or are we still
No,
sort of
because
in the
people
dark
are
there?
still, technically we haven't paid for the booth, so maybe we don't have a booth. But I think we'll have a booth. These booths are not cheap, by the way, folks, as we said in previous things.
Yeah, so we've been given clearance to purchase a booth.
We have, and it's going to be bigger. It's going to be bigger. We're going to have a 200 by 200.
200?
Sorry, 200 square
Wow.
feet, a 20 by 10.
Okay.
So I think what we'll do this year is we'll have half the booth open-ish for picture taking and stuff.
There you go. So we don't annoy everyone next to us?
Well, we still plan to annoy them
Oh, good.
by just being cheerful and happy.
Yeah, the usual.
But yeah, I think that would be fun. It would be interesting, and I look forward to seeing how that works out. But that is many months away. What's next is Christmas.
Yes.
Have you done Christmas shopping yet, Eric?
I've done a little bit. I don't think. I've secured at least one copy of Pandemic Legacy to give as a gift.
I have done most of the shopping for my kids because Cyber Monday was really good for that.
Yeah.
I don't actually understand why anybody would be interested at this point in time in Black Friday.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't
Crazy
make any
people.
sense to me. You see these fights and crowds, and people are like, I saved $50 on a TV. Like, those 6 hours you stood in line, you could have got a part-time gig somewhere
Yeah.
and made $60.
Yep.
And then you wouldn't have to fight with people over the TV.
Exactly.
I don't know. But Cyber Monday, you're like, ooh, I can just surf and see all this cool stuff
Yeah.
and have it shipped to my house.
Pretty neat.
It is. And all the game stores are all fighting over who has the cheapest prices. It's a good time to be a gamer, really.
Sure.
Everyone is offering up deals. So, you know what? We really should talk about games. By the way, I did not say this. I'm Tom Vassell.
Hi, I'm Eric Summerer.
So let's talk about some games. And we're going to start with German Railroads.
Ah.
Now, German Railroads is an expansion to Russian Railroads. I believe it was originally called German Railroads, Russian Railroads, which is super confusing. I think Russian Railroads is going to be one of those games that whenever someone says, Tom doesn't like dry Euro games, I'll be like, I love Russian Railroads. Because I really do like Russian Railroads. Russian Railroads is a game about optimization. It's very mathy. It's all about points. It's a worker placement game in which you place workers, and then you get to take actions, and many of those actions are moving track pieces down 3 different railroad tracks in front of you. German Railroads replaces the board in front of you with 3 different tracks. And what makes these tracks interesting is that they have blank spaces on them, and when you get to a blank space, you can pick one of these tiles that's next to the board and put it in that space. So you're customizing your tracks that you're moving down. So that's entertaining and interesting, and it gives you a feeling that you're doing something no one else does. It also adds a module of coal, which is like an extra thing that there's coal, and then you can buy little foundries and use coal in those factories. Coal's like a worker that you can use in those factories to produce you more things. Really enjoyed the game. Had a fantastic game against 3 people who all lapped me. I believe my final score was something along the lines like 160, and it was like 320 and 305 and 286, and I was like,
You tweeted something recently saying that this is one of those moments when you feel like you are the dumbest in the room. Was this that particular situation?
That was that particular situation. Even Jason did not win. But it was just I like those moments because I'm pretty good at understanding a game the first time we play it.
Yeah.
So like we play lots of games for the first time, lots of times, and I'm like, oh, I got this, and I'm playing with people who are not getting it, and I'm like trying to bring them along, and I'll try weird strategies and stuff, and I don't always win, but I always feel like I could, or at least have a shot at it. But sometimes you just want to play a game with people who really know a game. And the problem I have in Russian Railroads / German Railroads here is that it's the reason I like it is because everything is good. Do this, get something good. Do this, get something good. My problem is I'm like, all right, this is my strategy. I'm going to do this. Ooh, shiny points over there. Let me have a few of them. And I diverge from that strategy I initially thought about doing. I don't stick with it. And I think I don't get enough points because I don't do that. You know, you got to go for it. Just pick that strategy and stick to it. Have you played this game yet, Eric?
I played Russian, but not German.
Yeah, well, German's not much different, really. I mean, it's okay. It's very different, but I could easily teach it to you.
Right.
It adds some new engineers, and it adds, you know, some new bonus circle things. I forget what everything's called. But it's pretty cool. I like the customizable tracks. I like the things that I'm doing that no one else is doing, which apparently is not nearly as good as what they're doing, but it felt like it was good.
Well, that's good. I mean, a game slaps you over the face like that, and you feel like you have to explore it further.
I agree. So that is German Railroads, the expansion to Russian Railroads.
First for me is Mow Money. This is a new game from Mayday. It's about mowing lawns. A very colorful presentation here, very cartoony artwork. You are running a lawn mowing enterprise, and you are trying to earn contracts for taking care of lawns, which will earn you money.
This is a brutal business.
It is a brutal business because you are bidding against your opponents in this game. You're collecting sort of bid cards, and you draw them from different decks with ranges of values. And at the beginning of the game, you start out with just a push mower, so you can only bid on certain contracts at the very beginning of the game. But as you spend money to upgrade your lawnmower, you can get to a tractor, and then you can get to one of those zero-turn cool things with the handles that I've always wanted to ride on, but I never really have a reason to get one. Anyway, you buy those, and you can draw from the different decks, which allow you to also expand what contracts you're able to bid on. Some houses are much larger, and they don't even want to talk to you if all you have is the push mower. You need to have a better, larger ability to mow their lawn. So each round, you're going to bid on one or two of these contracts. You can also do sort of a set collection aspect to just earn money. If you collect 3 symbols, you earn a certain amount of money. You put these things face down with your bid tokens that say, this is the contract I want to bid on. Everybody simultaneously reveals. And if you have bid on the same contract as someone else, the lowest bid is going to get the bid and get paid for it. And if you do the set collection, you simply get paid. Simple as that. And you work your way through these decks of cards, and once one stack of cards runs out, the game is over, and whoever has the most money at the end wins. I found it to be really interesting. You know, it looks all cartoony and cute. I thought this was going to be like a tile layer or something about building yards to mow, or I don't know what I expected, but I did not expect a really competitive auction game, more or less, a blind bidding game. That worked pretty well. The mechanisms weren't terribly complicated, but they did give a couple of players a little bit of a speed bump in just figuring out what the process was, what they needed to do, because there's this churning aspect that you have to, get your engine going, literally, because you're talking about lawnmowers. However, just because you have the best engine doesn't necessarily mean you are going to win a particular contract, because somebody can undercut you. And you can stake your reputation. You can throw away some old contracts in order to lower your bid and hopefully win a contract away from somebody else. But if you don't win the bid, you've lost that. You've staked your reputation on it and it didn't work out. You've lost those points at the end of the game. It's not most money. It's most points at the end. That's the points that the contracts themselves are worth.
Well, you can even like bid points away to get more
by
points.
staking your reputation on that contract. I liked it quite a bit. It's a good game, and don't be deceived by the cartoony artwork. It can be a little brutal too. Mow Money, thumbs up.
Yeah, I like this one. It's interesting. I like how it all fits together, and I think Eric mentioned blind bidding, and for some people that's an automatic turnoff. I think you should try this one even if you don't like blind bidding, because it's a very different kind of blind bidding.
Yeah.
It's more, I'd say it's closer to simultaneous selection.
There are, I guess we played a 6-player game. There are 6 contracts on the table. And so you can bid on any one of those or any 2 of those. And so looking at what your opponents have drawn as far as their bid cards, what they're eligible for, as you work through these decks, different people will be eligible to compete for different contracts. And if somebody has just won one and hasn't purchased a bunch of new bid cards, maybe they aren't able to compete with you in this particular one. Or maybe knowing that they're going to gun for that contract, you may go somewhere else and hope to be all alone in your bid. So yeah, it's a lot more bluffing than just straight up blind bidding.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Certainly give it a whirl. I was not expecting it to be what it was. Yeah. I heard Mow Money and I expected this whole Mow Money da, 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 type game, and it's not.
Yeah, he thought it was an opera game.
A what?
An opera game. Mow Money, la da 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 da.
No, I thought it was a redneck game, but okay. All right. Estoril, 1942, which is in the running for poorly named games.
It sounds like this sounds like a gas station franchise.
It's a spy versus spy type game.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really cool. In this game, there's these different tiles on the board, and you start with a handful of spies. Everyone starts with the same 6 spies in your hand. And other spies are placed out on the table. They're like rewards. And you will be placing your spies most of the time face down in different areas. And then each area, after everyone's done placing, you flip up the spies in that area. Some of the spies have special abilities. They can shoot other spies. They can protect themselves from other spies. They can seduce a spy from another area. There's different things that they can do that will affect the other spies. And then whoever has the highest power, spies have a power number on them, will get that new spy. So you win a spy or two on the first round. You put all these in your hand, but you're only allowed to have 6 spies in your hand. So you have to discard a couple of them. So you're only ever going to have 6 in your hand. At the end of the game, each spy that you've discarded is worth a point. But the rest of the spies have point values on them. So you're going to want to keep some spies with, like 3 or 4 points in your hand. At the same time, you also want to keep spies with good special abilities and high powers in your hand. So you have to kind of decide each round which ones you're getting rid of, which ones you're going to keep using. There's things on the boards. There's spies have nationalities. There's some bonuses at the side too. You'll get at the end of the game. Like whoever has the most Portuguese spies will get 8 points at the end. But again, that only counts for the ones in your hand. And there's a lot of, I think I got this location. No, wait, you pulled this guy over to there, which changed this to that. I really enjoyed this. It's only 2 to 4 players. I have a decent lead that it's going to be reprinted in English. But I really enjoyed this. I just think the name, it sounds like a war game or something.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. Estoril 1942. I can't wait to hear about this.
Next up is And Then We Held Hands.
Who held hands?
And Then We Held Hands.
Who's we?
I played this with Jason Levine.
Yeah!
As well as some other folks at Board Game GeekCon. This is a 2-player-only cooperative game from Ludicreations. It consists of a board that's made up of concentric circles with colored dots around the different rings. They are in 4 colors. They're representing different emotions. There's red and black, which are sort of negative emotions, and then blue and green, which are positive emotions. And you are trying to move around these tracks, getting to dots to achieve objectives. You've got 3 stacks of 8 objectives. It simply says you need to get to a black dot. And if you manage to do that at the end of your turn, you've cleared that objective, you move on to the next one. You do this by playing cards both in your stack and in your partner's stack. And the cards have 2 colors on them. So there's a color on the left, color on the right. They might be the same, they might be different. Your cards are splayed in a certain direction based on where you are on the board. If you're on the left side, the cards will be splayed one way, and if you're on the right side, your cards will be splayed the other way. So you can use both yours and your partner's cards in order to move around the board, and as many as you need to in order to get to a certain objective. And once you work through one stack of cards, you then get to move into the next inner circle in the concentric circles. You can still move around on the outer one, but you can only score on the current ring. And if you get all the way through all 3 rings, achieving all of the objectives, you then need to move into the center by playing any single card. Every time you play these cards, your balance, you have like an emotional balance. So every time you play a red or a black card, you go in one direction. And you play, a green or a blue card, you go in the other direction. And if you are balanced at the end of your turn, you get to draw back up to your 6 cards. But if you're not, you don't. And if you're actually pinging the end of this track, and it's only 2 steps in either direction, if you're all the way at the end of the black-red track, you cannot play black or red cards. So you may get stuck until you play cards in the other direction and try and get yourself back into balance. If you don't have a move at the beginning of your turn, you've both lost. Or if you make it all the way into the center and do this on consecutive turns, and you are both balanced when you do so, you will win the game. Now, this is a very sort of froofy theme. It's all about emotions and making a connection with your partner. You are not supposed to discuss strategy during the course of the game. You can talk about other stuff. There's also a variant where you play in complete silence. So I did enjoy playing a game where Jason was not allowed to talk. And so you have to sort of watch out for what your partner is able to do and needs to do in order to get where they need to go. And as silly as the theme may be, if you look at it from an outside perspective, I think it worked. The art design, just the theming of the whole thing made me calm down and pay attention to the partner and just have an enjoyable, relaxing game. I think this works for what it is trying to do. There are ways to make the game more difficult. I didn't win with Jason, but I did win with my next partner, which maybe says something, I'm not sure. And I felt that once...
Your wife yet?
I have not played with my wife yet, but I think she would enjoy it.
I want to know if you win. That's what I want to know.
There are ways to make the game more difficult. You can add argument cards in that both players need to be on a particular color in order to score an objective, and there's 3 levels of making it more difficult. So there's room to grow here. I liked this one quite a bit. It was... I think it worked thematically. It calmed me down. I think I would enjoy playing this with my wife. Thumbs up from me. And then we held hands. I think it's being brought over by Passport in the very near future.
It is being brought over by Passport. Do you hold hands at the end if you win?
You can. I did not. I think we high-fived.
That is slightly different. The game is not called And Then We High-Fived.
And then we high-fived.
Although that sounds like a good sequel. All right. The next game I want to talk about, and I didn't realize you got a copy of this, Eric, is KLASK.
KLASK is fantastic. Go ahead.
This is the largest review copy I think Eric's ever gotten. Mm-hmm. This KLASK is a giant game. Think air hockey. But instead of putting your thing on the top of the table, you have a magnetic piece underneath the table that controls your piece on the top of the table. You're trying to hit a ball into your opponent's. They have a little hole on their side of the table. You're trying to hit the ball into that hole. So that's pretty simple, right? Well, not quite. Okay, first of all, it's kind of cool that you're moving this magnet underneath the board. But if you ever accidentally move your magnet piece into your hole, it gets stuck, and you give the opponent a point. And then there's 3 little white magnets in the middle of the board that so easily attach themselves to your magnet. Mm-hmm. And if 2 of them attach themselves to your magnet, you give the opponent a point. You will find that you score as many points from your opponent going into the hole or getting 2 magnets on them as you do actually getting the ball into the hole.
Yes.
And it's hilarious when you hit the ball and it's like right near one of those white magnets and your opponent is gingerly trying to hit the ball without the magnet attaching to them. Mm-hmm. Now, this game is about the size. What do you think the dimensions of it are? It's not huge. It's not like an air hockey table.
Yeah.
It's maybe
maybe
foot and a half wide.
A foot and a half long? 1.5 feet or 2 feet?
Yeah, it's not very long, but it is big. Okay, this is not a game you'll easily fit on your shelf. Although the storage box it comes in holds it very easily. It has a nice handle. Yeah. Although it's idiotically has giant words on it.
Yeah, it's been quite the conversation piece in my house.
Yes, I understand that. What does it say on the outside? I think it says stick your hand under the table. Get it into the hole. And you're like, that's an odd thing to put on the cover. And like it shows a picture of the game in the corner, very small.
Yes.
It's a very odd packaging.
Yes.
But I have had such great success with this. I'm taking my copy to Dice Tower Con, and I'm seriously considering running a tournament there.
It's quick. It seems simple, but there's actually some interesting tactics there. You can hit the ball into those white magnet pieces and actually constrict your opponent's play space. Forget shooting for the goal. Shoot for those little targets, and it makes it very difficult for your opponent to move around. And those things are rolling around and flying back and forth. And in the chaos of trying to block your own goal, it's very easy to fall into your own hole and score your opponent a point. My kids loved it. My family has loved it. It's seen a lot of play in just the week or so that it's been in the house. It's really been a huge hit, and I'd recommend it for just about everyone.
Yeah, I don't know what the price is, though. That may be a turnoff.
I think, okay, future Eric, you need to look that up, just so that we should know what that is. On it!
Right, but I'm imagining it's not cheap.
No.
Right, so there's
this
that.
is an heirloom. This is like a family game room quality piece. It's probably not as heavy as a crokinole board, but it's along those lines. It's a very high-quality dexterity game that belongs in a family room or a den. It's a good, solid game and very well put together. Hey, future Eric here. Thank you, past Eric, for the task. Loved doing homework. So KLASK is a list price of $59.99, which really isn't that bad. But here's the catch. It's only available, at least here in the U.S. or North America. They have an exclusive distributor from a high-end toy / brain games store called Marbles, the Brain Store. I had never heard about this. There aren't any in Connecticut, but you can find out where you can find one near you at their website, which is marblesthebrainstore.com. It's out of stock on the website, but word is on Board Game Geek, you may find it at a local location.
The last game I'm going to talk about today is Stinky Business. This is a game in which you are getting rid of trash, or more apt, probably recycling. In the course of this game, you are trying to get different goods. There is, I believe, glass and aluminum, and there's different kinds of trash, and there's this big giant pile of trash. And you're going through, it's a deck of cards, and you're going through these cards, and then you are trying to get these cards into your processing plants. And there's a bit of, trying to choose actions. Do you want to you're building processing plants on the board. Do you want to build them in the most expensive places where they have the first chance to go through the piles and find recyclable materials? Or do you want to, build the cheaper ones at the end when there might not be anything left? Or you could go to the very end and build plants that just basically burn everything, burn all the trash, incineration plants, and get money from doing that, which I thought was a tremendous strategy until halfway through, no trash was coming through because people were recycling everything. Why do people have to recycle stuff and keep this country green?
The jerks.
Ugh. They were robbing me of my money. At the end, I was like, and now we've all learned a lesson from playing this game. And then I drank water from my plastic bottle. So, it's an interesting game. It has a lot of interesting ideas. There are parts of the game that are tedious. You will search through these decks of cards, and after a while, every player is doing that, and you have to do it in order, and that gets a little bit lengthy. And the game is one of those games where you're like, oh, we did all that work, and you get a few points at the end of the game. It was a little too long for what it was. If you get blocked out of an area early, you could kind of be out of the game to some degree. And there's incredible luck drawing cards. Literally, you will win on the last turn if you draw, it's called golden trash. Don't ask me why. If you draw an aluminum card, which is worth a lot more points than, let's say, on your last turn you draw something, a bunch of small plastic pieces. So that kind of, everyone enjoyed it. And as the game went by, the enjoyment started fading away. And at the end, everyone said, okay, that was an interesting game, but no one liked it because it had those problems, which is unfortunate. But it's cool, but I can't recommend it. That's Stinky Business.
Last for me is Between Two Cities, which was seeing a lot of love in the Board Game Geek library at BGGCon. This is a very quick tile drafting game in which you're trying to build a 4x4 assortment of tiles, buildings, to make up a city on either side of you. because you are playing semi-cooperatively with the player to your right and to your left. The cities are built between you. You are literally between two cities where you're sitting. So you are given a couple of tiles, and you will draft two of them and pass the rest along, and then you flip them both up and then decide, after you flip them up, which city on which side of you these things are going to be attached to. And you have to put them into the grid somehow, and at first it's very freeform, but eventually you figure out the boundaries of what this 4x4 grid is going to be. And you are hoping to maximize the score in both of them, because ultimately your lowest scoring city is the one that is your personal score. So you don't want to help one city too much while the other one flounders, because that's going to be your city. And each tile has different scoring options, much like many games that you've seen of this type. So there's one that simply gives you points for each one you've got, but then you lose points if they're next to other types of tiles. There's another, the yellow tiles, that are more points if they're in one straight line. So if you can get 4 of them in a line, they're worth the maximum amount of points.
Yeah, honestly, the ways that tiles score is not that interesting. It's like lifted from every other scoring game of this type.
Almost every drafting game of this type is along those lines. But the twist is that you are building them in a cluster and working both sides at the same time. So you'll flip over 2 tiles, and your partner to your right goes, "Oh, you could put that green one in ours." It's like, yeah, I really need to put this green one in this one. You can have this house. And trying to work both of those and keep both of your partners happy. I did not successfully win this one. I managed to help the guy to my right win, but also so did the guy to his right. So he had the best score. My fear with this, I did enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and it offers depth in that quick playtime that you're looking for in, I guess, a heavy filler is what this would be. It still plays quickly, but it has some deep decisions to it. My fear is that you could AP this quite a bit as you're looking at all the tiles, and if you really start counting points on either side of you, if you really want to maximize your score, that's, I guess, what you need to do. I tend to play by the hip and, just, okay, yeah, over here, this looks good. I think I'm building pretty evenly. I think if you stopped to count, you might slow things down quite a bit. So that's my only fear. It didn't happen, but the potential's there. I still liked Between Two Cities.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that the potential's there that much. There's only so many places to really put the tiles, I think.
Yeah.
I like it. I do want to try the variant. I think it's called Fight the Right. Which means the city on your right you want to be horrific. You only score the one city.
Huh. Interesting.
Right? So you're trying to make your one city better, but the opponent to your left is
trying to save it.
Trying to absolutely just mess it over.
Huh. That's interesting.
I don't know. I might try that sometime just to see.
Sure, why not?
Hey, folks, are you tired of us talking about Dice Tower Con and you can't get in? No, you're in. What are you talking about? Well, if you are in the area, we're doing the South Miami Christmas Convention.
I'm not anywhere near the area.
Yeah, I know, but maybe you can, this way you can feel bad so you can emphasize with the people who can't make Dice Tower Con. Anyhow, this is just a one-day affair, but if you are in South Florida at all, on the 19th of December, we're having an all-day gaming thing, 12 hours, 10 to 10. We're going to have lots of games. I'll probably have a big pitch card tournament. There's a raffle. It's $15 a person, but that includes lunch and supper. I think that there's an extra percentage off of the percentages on Cool Stuff games already. So you're definitely going to want to come out to that. Also, only board gamers are allowed in the store. It's amazing.
They check you at the door?
No, but they make you pay $15.
Gotcha.
So that chases away anyone who just wants to come play Magic or something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're anywhere near the area, come on out. We're having it during this time of year so that people visiting can come by. All those people going on a cruise or something.
Okay.
All right, we'll see you there.
Sweet.
Mr. Vassal. Yes. Do you have any superpowers?
Are you really working on Nothing Personal, Junior?
What are your top 10 candy bars?
And now the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the bathroom?
Scott says he's facing a huge dilemma. I recently picked up Time Stories and can't wait to tackle the asylum. Problem is, my game group consists of the following: my wife, my cousin and her husband, my best friend, and myself. How do I decide who gets to play this 4-player game with 5 people? My wife is probably the least hardcore gamer of the group, but she is the most interested in puzzle games. My best friend has the hardest time getting to the table due to his grad school schedule, but next to myself is the biggest Lovecraft-style horror fan. Then there is my cousin and her husband, who are both huge gamers who want to play everything. Obviously, I am going to play, since I bought the game, but what would you do in my situation? How would you handle a choice between significant other, family, and friends? Who would you cut?
Don't cut anyone. That's a terrible way to... Okay, I saw some people playing this at Board Game Geek Con where 2 people shared one character. And I think you can do that in Time Stories and be okay.
Yeah, I don't see why that would be a problem.
That
it
is
just
what
means
I would do.
You're looking at the same cards.
It seems it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you might not get to make your own personal decisions, but you're all working together as a group anyway. Mm-hmm. So that is what I would do.
You could also wait until, like, your best friend doesn't show up one time and then play that and never tell them it ever happened.
There's that. That is Eric Summers' advice. It does not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Dice Tower as a whole.
And then when your best friend is like, so when are we going to play Time Stories? And everybody just sort of averts their eyes and starts whistling. Well, I don't know.
Has
Maybe
that ever
sometime.
worked?
No.
All right.
But it would be funny.
Barry says, Barry says, the convention season's over, and he says he listens to us, and we mentioned some great fun game. We talked about Flowerfall. We talked about that great height we dropped from. But there's nothing this year. Has Flowerfall fallen off of the grid, or is there no great event that is deserved of shouting about?
Well, I think it's my fault. I haven't brought it to the last couple of events that have high heights.
I don't know what it is. Maybe that was a one-time thing.
Yeah, you can't reclaim the magic.
I don't know that we... Yeah, just...
We did it twice. We did it one year sort of impromptu, and then we scheduled it the next time.
That's right. We did do it twice, but the second time
No one told us not to do it again, but we just sort of said, okay, that was... You know what happened? I think the next year we got involved in the tops.
That is what happened. And I was very cautious. If we made it any bigger than we had made it, I think I would have to run it by Board Game Geek.
Yeah. There's only so much, cowboy gaming you can do and not get in trouble with either the hotel or the organizers.
Yeah, so we'll see. Barry also said if the responsibility of organizing GenCon or Spiel fell in your lap and you accepted the role, would you change anything?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I would. I'd get the stadium at Gen... Oh, wait. Yes. This is what I would do. I've actually already thought these things through.
Yeah.
For Gen Con, I would have a lot more board game special guests. There's almost none at this current point in time. They're almost all role-playing guests. And while there is a lot of role players who are at Gen Con, there are just as many, if not more, board gamers. And I feel that's a disservice to not do that.
Get Bruno Catala in a panel or something.
I would also revamp the open gaming area at Gen Con. Like, very much so. I don't like the way that it's set up. I would have a singular fee, like Origins does, and you can go in the entire time. I would give them a lot more room, make the library an official library, put some Gen Con staff with some of the vast amounts of money that I would have at my disposal in there, and just keep that thing running all the time in one big open gaming area.
Yeah.
I would also have catered food from St. Elmo's Fire the entire time. Or St. Elmo's.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
For Essen, I would start opening big open gaming areas that stayed open all night long.
Yeah.
Now, these are not problems with these fairs. These are just things I would...
They're
This was the question I was asked.
Yes.
But what if you were in charge, Eric?
Well, I like your ideas. I'd be your yes man. I'd hire you as the idea guy.
Also to take the fall when everybody complained about it.
Exactly. No, I think an open gaming area would be really nice. It's just part of the culture of Essenspiel that when it shuts down, it shuts down. It's a consumer fair. It's not a convention. And it would be nice to sort of cultivate more of a convention atmosphere. If they have the empty halls, if some of those were open at night, they can shut down everything else. But if there were gaming halls open at night, that would be really cool.
Since we're talking about convention news, we do have a bigger hall this year. I believe we have, for our live show at Essen, we will have up to 600 people can come, I think.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that exciting?
Really? That's great.
But we're still going to probably run out of tickets, so.
Okay. But it's still, the line will have more happy people than sad people, I hope.
We can hope. What we need to do is irritate enough people over the next year. And get our audience down to, like, just that number.
Manage that expectation. We had to make so many people unhappy. Do you have tickets? No, I'm sorry. Do you have tickets? No. Not for a while now. Mike says, I appreciate the live Q&A videos that you do as you are able, but I'm not able to participate during the broadcast. Since there are no special graphics or video edits, is there a reason why the audio is not made available via DTV audio? Much of what is made available via DTV audio I don't listen to, but instead choose to watch since there is meaningful video images that reinforce the discussion or review. But the Q&A videos don't get any such editing treatment. I don't mind watching you respond to questions after the fact. You often get/pick great questions to answer, and you give interesting answers. But having to load up video is not as convenient as a podcast I can listen to on my commute. Please consider making the Q&A video audio available via DTV audio. Is there a reason this is not already happening?
Okay. For those of you who are wondering what DTV audio is, you can go to dicetoweraudio.com and you can download a podcast which has the audio from some of our more popular shows that in the video. So like the Board Game Breakfast, Board Game Blender, the Top 10s, things like that. The reason I don't do Dice Tower Audio at this point in time is because when we record a video, we export the audio, we levelate that audio, we stick that audio back in the video so it sounds good and put it up on the internet. So when I want to send something to Dice Tower Video, boom, I already got the audio already. When I do a live Q&A, it's recorded live and goes straight to YouTube. So to get the audio from that, I would have to go to some program that downloaded a YouTube video audio. I would then have to levelate that audio and work with that audio and send it. Those are extra steps, and I will consider doing those, but the fact is that the Dice Tower audio feed does not have near the number of listeners that would warrant that work at this point in time. We only have so much time during a week. I am constantly messing with all sorts of audio and video stuff. If someone's willing to do that for me, sure, go for it. I would accept that. But at this point in time, I just can't do it. And I mean, there's a lot of things like that. Why don't you put this here? Why don't you do that? Well, we have to kind of manage our time. We can't do everything. You know, it's kind of like even when we edit the show, Eric could edit out every time we said the word
Yep.
But that would add hours to the editing process.
It would.
And I've
learned what an looks like now.
How many do you pull?
Actually, I don't do a lot of uhs. Well, that one I'm taking out.
I'm trying to mess with Eric's editing. I'm going to say in different ways.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Philip says, why do you save so many games for other podcasts or video reviews? Why not cover all of them in short form, or at least most? Eric?
Well, as far as the podcast goes, I think we've reached a nice pacing for their first part of the show, or sometimes we do it later in the show. But doing 3 or 4 games each in quick form to talk about it, and then we move on. It's sort of the hallmark of our show that we're sort of in and out and quick. in our descriptions of games. And I think that is something that we like to do. If we did too many of those, it's fun every once in a while to do the, 15 games in 15 minutes, rapid fire. But I think if we did that all the time, it would be too much. And our variety show format works for us.
I think you're almost at max anyway.
As far as my bandwidth?
I mean, I don't think you're playing too many games that you're not talking about.
I don't no. I sometimes after an event like Board Game Geek, I have a number in the queue that I can talk about, but there are some times that I'm scrambling to get enough together to cover a couple shows worth of discussion.
His wife's like, I'm tired. He's like, let's play this game.
We have to
you
play
want to play this game?
Sit down,
I just
son.
need something to talk about in the podcast.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, that's that reason. We can't talk about 15 games every episode. I'm already having enough of a time in my head to sometimes keep track about which games I talk about where.
You really need a chart.
We had one, or I had one, that kept track of when I mentioned stuff on the podcast. But what happened was I passed that responsibility off to Z. It was the same chart of here's the games we have, here's the date we got them, here's when they're reviewed, and then I also had a slot. Here's when I talk about it on the podcast.
Right.
But I don't actually keep track of that. Z does now, which has become almost a full-time job keeping track of these review copies.
Logistics. It's like its own pick up and deliver game.
At the beginning of December here, I have 14 full boxes of games going to Dice Tower Con. I packed them up already.
Wow.
Each box has between 15 and 25 games in it.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Craziness. It's very exciting, though.
The line for the flea market's going to start before the convention registration.
I think Patrick said I'm going to be like in a separate area. I don't know what it's going to happen. So
yeah, he sent out a note to we're registering people for the flea market. Everybody only gets one table except for Tom because we're putting him in his own room.
Is that what he said?
He said except for Tom and the crazy mountain of games.
Well, I can't argue that. That's certainly the truth of things. So, okay. Yeah, I just talked to Patrick today, just some about the Dice Tower Con, folks, and so the plans for that are coming along well, and we're looking forward to that. So, interesting. Okay.
Sarah has an anecdote. She was recently at a convention at Origins Game Fair, and her friend was looking at Ubongo. Liked it a lot, wanted to buy it, brought it to the worker at the booth, and handed cash to them. And they said, oh, no, we don't take cash. We can only take credit card. And they were both sort of taken aback. No cash? Aside from ordering something through the mail, I had never heard of such a thing, especially at a convention when so many people bring cash to purchase games. My friend had allotted a certain amount of money for her purchases and had already withdrawn the cash. She didn't want to use a debit card and go over her budget, and she definitely didn't want to put it on a credit card, so she passed on the purchase altogether. Sarah's wondering if in all of our convention visits and time as exhibitors, we had ever seen this or had any insight as to why a company might do it. It seems to make even less sense when you think about the fees vendors have to pay to process credit cards. Other than them not wanting to have a lot of cash on hand for security reasons, I just can't come up with any good reasons. She still has not purchased Ubongo.
It's like a sad story there. Well, I think Sarah answered her own question, probably.
Yeah, well, that last point for sure. We actually heard firsthand of an Essen retailer losing a significant amount of money due to theft.
Yes, and these things do happen at conventions, especially the larger the convention gets. Although, on the flip side, I have never heard of this.
That's true.
I've heard of many retailers that did not accept credit cards, although that number has gone down dramatically over the past couple of years to the point where I barely run across it.
I can understand the impetus. I mean, it's cleaner to just swipe the plastic, and then you don't have to deal with change. You don't have to deal with keeping a certain amount of stock of cash in the booth. You don't have to have a locked or security system for dealing with it. It does make it easier.
Also gives you a good record of what you've sold and stuff.
Yeah, your bookkeeping is better. But I've still never heard of anyone going completely cashless in the booth. It's
Interesting.
a shame.
Well, who knows?
A cautionary tale, Cosmos.
Well, it might not have been Cosmos. It could have been a second store. But like I said,
A cautionary tale secondary store selling Ubongo.
Marcus says he was taught Glory to Rome before the Black Box edition. He's like a hipster here. I remember thinking it was a fantastic game with terrible art and graphic design. I like the art. At the time, it was around number 400 to 500 on the Board Game Geek list, which is amazing, folks. A little while after the Black Box update, it rocketed into the top 100 and has stayed there for since. To me, this says that the visuals of a game have a measurable effect on its popularity. As Monty Games, please take note. I don't know why. Okay. What other great games could see a significant popularity boost if they were to receive a visual overhaul? Well, Marcus, I'm going to politely disagree with you here. I think City of Rome did not. I like the artwork, but certainly I understand not everyone did.
Yeah.
I don't think the Black Box version was that much better. It went way in the other direction, like with no artwork.
With very stark, suggestive artwork.
That is not why it rocketed up. It rocketed up because it somehow hit the hype machine.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, when it first came out, I said it was a great game. I liked it, but it didn't get a lot of buzz because it was this little clamshell thing. You should talk about that more than the art. It came in that clamshell packaging that looks like a cheap game. But then some people started playing it, and people said this is a great game. They told their friends, and it just started, a snowball effect happened. And it was already hyped up before the Black Box version came out. When it came out, that just was icing on the cake. Not to mention, it took forever for it to come out, and that company went out of business.
That's true.
So I'm not sure this is a good example of what to do, because that company went bankrupt.
Delivering that game.
Yes, because they
Tom,
offered free shipping anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Take note, every other company.
Just an episode or two ago, Tom, you were discussing the graphic design decisions of Splotter and not being terribly pleased with them. How well do you think a graphical redesign or a deluxe edition of some of these titles would sell?
I don't know. I think that's a two-part question, but I think that an overhaul of a game will always sell more copies. Period. You make your game look cool and great and fun, and people will buy it. That's just 101. Make your product look good. That's marketing. However, I don't think splatter games would have any kind of resurgence. I think everybody who wants to play a splatter game has gotten them.
Yeah.
And one has to be careful. Splatter games have a release of 1,000 or less sometimes. It's usually pretty low, right?
Yeah.
But if you go on Board Game Geek, you're like, wow, everyone loves this game. It's amazing. Everyone loves it. Well, yes, everyone on Board Game Geek, the audience for it is pretty much saturated. They're heavy games. They meet a very select group of people. For a game to just be super popular, it needs to change the game, not just the graphic overlay. And I'm not saying it's a bad game, splatter games, but I do think they look horrible. And I think that keeps some people from playing them. But I think the intended audience is going to play them even if they were black and white at this point.
Probably.
I'm still going to give them garbage about it. But there's nothing I can do. All right, well, that's it for questions this time. Let's go to a top 10.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
AEG, Alderac Entertainment Group.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder where Alderac came from.
Alderac.
Anyway, no one even calls them that anymore. Now, they came onto the scene years ago, and they were big into role-playing games, or role-playing supplements at least, and the Legends of the Five Rings. That was them.
Yeah.
They also had the Doomtown Reloaded, I believe. Not Reloaded, I'm sorry, it was just Doomtown, and the Pirates of the Seven Seas. And I remember my first purchase from AEG was The World's Largest Dungeon, which was a book of hundreds of pages of one dungeon, of a map that would cover your entire wall, that I'm not sure anyone has ever actually played through The World's Largest Dungeon. I have played through a lot of it, but it's big.
Wow.
And they like had one of every monster in this dungeon. It actually was kind of hard to explain why.
Wow.
So that was that. And I remember they started getting into board games about a decade ago. I don't remember if you were there when they first brought out Tomb. I remember Tomb came out and it got panned. And then they came out with a bunch of games. Adventures they came out with. Then they had that one where you were roller skating inside a dome. Was not a very good game. They came out with several bad board games. And
Is that Russian Crush?
No, not Russian Crush. This was like a year before Russian Crush. They came out with the straw that broke the camel's back, or there was just several games, and they were like struggling to find their footing, but board games was still kind of a side project for them. Then they had some bona fide hits with board games. Probably Thunderstone is the game that kind of brought them out of obscurity. They, right after Dominion, they came out with Thunderstone. Then Smash Up really did well for them. And then they started, publishing board games and board games. The role-playing stuff started disappearing. This year, they sold the Legends of the Five Ring.
Yes.
And so we're starting to see a lot of, they're now basically a full-fledged board game company.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting migration. They're not the only company that has done this, that has moved away from their roots and changed to becoming a board game company. But I thought it'd be interesting. They have enough games out now that we can make a top 10, even if we do have a good chunk of crossover.
A little bit.
5 games is more than a little.
Okay. A middle bit.
Is that a word?
Yes.
I'm a middle bit mad. Okay. I don't know how to say. I'm a middle bit miffed, I think would be the right thing. All right. Well, let's get started here with AEG Games.
Number 10.
My number 10 is the only major game of the Tempest line that I've played. There's one that's also part of it, but only in a minor way. This is KLASK, and in this game you are connecting canals to the bodies of water on the board to allow buildings to score. And the more certain buildings and canals and other buildings you have connected to it, the better. And I enjoyed it. It's a thinky game. It's one that you stare at the board for a while trying to make all your stuff work, but it's that kind of thinky that I really enjoy. My number 10, KLASK.
That's right. And that reminds...
Tom is reordering his list as I spoke.
I could tell it was throwing you off. No, it's because when I made the list, there was a game name that for some reason I couldn't remember the name of it. And I was like, all right, I'll put it on the list later. And then when you mentioned that, the Tempest series, I was like, oh, that's the game. So I added it to the list. All right.
Okay.
My number 10 is higher on Eric's list. I'm going to go with much higher. I think I'll need to do some rearranging here to get it right.
You got it.
Number 9.
My number 9 is Nightfall. You mentioned Thunderstone as being one of the deck builders of AEG, but this is one that really took the deck building concept and really tweaked it. It didn't just take those same mechanisms and rehash them. It has this, the concept of the what do they call it? The cascade? It's not the cascade. It's if
chaining.
You order your chaining, that's it. If you order your cards properly and get the colors to match up in a certain way, you can get stuff, lots of things to happen at once, as opposed to just playing a single card at a time. Getting that to work is a little mind-bending. So it's I use the word thinky again. It is a very mentally difficult to get all this stuff to work right, but building your deck around getting those chains to work right is the key to Nightfall, and it takes a little bit to wrap your mind around it. My number 9, Nightfall.
It's certainly an interesting game. Definitely finished. They ended the run of it. It had its fans that were very big fans of it, but never actually seemed to take that strong of a hold on the market.
It had a bit of a niche. The app is also quite good.
Maybe I'll have to try that. My number 9 is a brand new game that just came out a month or so ago, and that's Dice City. I really like Dice City. I like in this game you roll dice and then you place them on your board and they're going to activate different buildings. And then you can build new buildings and place them on their board so that when you roll the dice, they will activate different buildings. And you can use some dice to move other dice or to manipulate dice or to then produce resources to conquer enemies or to build even better buildings with things. It's just a fun game. If you like games like Kingsburg and such, I think you'll enjoy Dice City. I know that I'm really liking it. Dice City.
I really need to try this one. This has been on the wish list for a while.
Number 8.
My number 8, I could have sworn was on Tom's list somewhere.
It's now number 11.
I don't see it anymore. is Love Letter. The entry into the micro game wave. And it still works as a light filler. I like the tweaks that some of the specialized versions have added, the Batman version, the Lord of the Rings version. It is a game that can be brought out in many situations when you have just a few minutes to play. You don't even need to play to the full victory condition. You can just quickly bang out a couple of rounds. It's got enough bluffing and deduction aspect that holds my interest. It's a neat little game. Love Letter, my number 8, and Tom's 11.
Yeah, Love Letter is interesting. I would have picked Batman Love Letter probably, but I haven't played all of them. I certainly feel like they've milked this concept. I think if there's one game that's done really well for them, it's Love Letter. Although it's not the game that's done the best for them, I think. But it's a pretty strong game. So, yeah, it's a good pick. I still remember, I think you were with me the first time we played it, right?
I was.
At a breakfast at GenCon.
Steak and shake.
My number 8 is higher on Eric's list, so we will chug along.
Number 7.
My number 7 is farther up on Tom's list, so I'll take this stack, and I'll just start shuffling while you move on.
My number 7 is another brand new game from AEG, and that is Automobiles. Automobiles is the third in a so-called trilogy. I say that because the games aren't really similar, of trains, planes, and now automobiles. It's a deck builder of sorts, more of we call these bag builders, where you're going to be throwing cubes into a bag and pulling these cubes out and then using these cubes to race around the board. Some cubes will give you special abilities, some will let you go in different gears, and so you're trying to build your bag to most efficiently move your car around the track. A pretty cool concept. It's not that long. It's something different in the racing genre. I like it. It's unique and interesting. That's Automobiles.
Number 6.
AEG does seem to have a lot of deck builders, don't they? My number 6 is also a deck builder, but Tom's going to talk about it later. So I was going to pull a bunch of individual sets out, but now I'm just going to shuffle it all together and wait for Tom to talk about it.
My number 6 is not a deck builder. It's a CCG. AEG picked up many CCGs. We've mentioned Doomtown and the 7th Sea, but this is one of my favorites, and that's Warlord. Warlord is essentially kind of a Dungeons and Dragons system as a CCG. You have a Warlord. This comes out way before Summoner Wars and Mage Wars, and you're trying to kill your opponent's Warlord. But you build like a cascading group of warriors in front of your Warlord, and they fight each other. And you're using D20s plus stats and special abilities on the cards. I don't know why. I just like rolling a D20, I think. But this game, I think, offered a lot of fun. And what I really like about it is the starter decks work fine. And you can get the starter decks these days for really cheap prices at all those dead CCG zones.
Yeah.
Although, have you noticed that those zones are starting to get smaller and smaller at conventions?
I guess so. People are buying up all the stock, and not as many CCGs are being released.
Right. So it's like a dying thing. You know, eventually in 20 years, be like, when I was a kid, there were other CCGs besides Magic. You say to the kids as you live in the Magic the Gathering, D.C., which has been the renamed capital of the United States.
Huh.
I don't know. That's my future.
That's an interesting world domination plan for Richard Garfield.
I don't think it's Richard Garfield anymore steering that ship. My number 6, Warlord.
Number 5.
My number 5 is one of the small box games from AEG. It's called Sail to India. It's a pick up and deliver sort of resource management game that uses, we talked about this a few weeks ago, that limited component concept where a cube is just a cube until you put it over here and now it's a ship. You put it over here, it's your money. And you only have so many of these cubes. So the more victory points, the more money you get, the more cubes you have to sort of bank on the card that's keeping track of your money or your victory points or your ships, or, and you only have so many of them. So eventually you have to start working away or churning through your money or your victory points to get more ships on the board, or vice versa. And that's an interesting decision to make. Using these sparse components to create a deep resource management game, I love that sort of thing. Sail to India, my number 5.
It is an interesting little game. My number 5 is higher in Eric's list, so I can't think of a pun.
Number 4.
Number 4 is Valley of the Kings, and until Tom started messing his list up, we had synced up on this one. Again, deck builder, but with that twist. You've got a pyramid of cards that you're able to grab, and you can only grab from the bottom, so you are trying to manipulate that pyramid to allow you to get to certain cards. You have to watch what you buy so you don't cascade a card that will allow your opponent to get something cool. Also, your score is nothing until you start banking cards. You have to acquire these powerful cards. You bury them. You put them in your tomb, and so you get powerful cards, and you want to use them, but you also want to score them, and you're doing a sort of a set collection thing, so you want to focus your purchases and funnel them into the tomb and find ways to tomb more cards, bury more cards, than your normal just single tomb bury action. Decisions, and I like this game quite a bit.
Yeah.
Valley of the Kings, my number 4.
It is a lot of fun. That's my number 5. I enjoy the fact that the Afterlife, which is the new set that came out, they're interchangeable. You can play with just one. They're both a lot of fun. This game works really well for 2 players. It's the most compact deck builder I know. It's really easy to teach people. It felt like a breath of fresh air in this genre. So my number 5, which was Eric's number 4, Valley of the Kings. My number 4 is the game that messed everything up for Eric, and that's Dominaire. Now, I like the different games, some of the games in the Tempest series. The one that Eric said for number 10, Canalis, is not good. Don't get it. Well, hey, I don't know. It seems poorly put together, but anyhow, Dominaire is a fascinating game. I really like it. It's an area control game of the different areas in this Tempest world, which I think is gone now. I think they've stopped the Tempest series. I
haven't heard about it in a while.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it's gone. But anyhow, so it's there's different areas in the city that you're trying to control, and you're doing so using different character cards. You're going to play 7 character cards over the course of the game, but when you play them determines how powerful that character is. And I find that really fascinating. It just works together. The game is slightly longer than it needs to be, but I have a lot of fun playing it. That's Dominaire.
Number 3.
My number 3 was Tom's number 8, and that's yet another deck builder, and that's Trains. The twist here, it's very Dominion-like, but you also have a board in which you are sort of battling for board position in connecting to these various cities with your cubes. You also have a trash, a waste management concept that as you do certain actions, you'll acquire waste. And part of the goal of this game is to find ways to get rid of that to keep your deck as efficient as it can be. And that's a neat trick to try and pull off. There are a good number of expansion maps for this, and I have not played through them all, but I still really love Trains, my number 3.
Yeah, Trains is right. And, Eric, until you mentioned it, I hadn't noticed just how many deck builders this company comes out with.
It's a lot.
They may have the most of any company, because I'm struggling to think of another company that has more than one. Rio Grande has 2.
But they don't feel the same, which I think is the point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, I'm not arguing that. Although I will say that as much as I like Trains, and I do like it, it's a very interesting game, it most definitely is a blatant copy of Dominion with a board.
There are many similar concepts when you look at the cards. There's lots of analogs there.
So, my number 3 is I love this game, and that's Adventure's Temple of Chak, or whatever it's pronounced. This game is Indiana Jones in a box. You're running from a boulder, walls are closing in, jumping over lava, jumping across a waterfall, still running from that boulder. I really love this game. I've had it in my collection for a long time now. Cool plastic pieces. In fact, I got someone to paint mine.
Ooh. Which
makes it look even better. It's really neat. I remember the first time I played this, I was like, yes, AEG has a good game. And then I believe Fantasy Flight got the rights to it at some point, which has happened with a few of the games on this list. Not Fantasy Flight, but not all the games on this list are just AEG.
Right.
But I really enjoyed this one. Eric, have you ever played this?
Yeah, I owned this for a little while. This has a terrific toy value. I felt the gameplay wasn't as strong as I wanted it to be. It felt like a bunch of little mini games. You had to explain how each section of the board worked every time you taught the game.
I'm going to take pictures of this and send them to your kids, because your son will be like, Dad, you got rid of that?
You got rid of this game? It looks gorgeous, and it certainly drew people in, but it wasn't one that was seeing any playtime, so I let it go. It's still a neat game. I did consider it for the list.
Number 2.
Number 2 for me is Istanbul. This was one of my favorites of the last couple of years. What was that?
It was once Constantinople.
Yes.
Why they changed it, I can't say.
People just liked it better that way. Istanbul, a terrific game about, there's some pick up and deliver aspects to it. There's resource management aspects to it. There's different paths as you can work toward a trading strategy or a delivery strategy. And it's a lot of fun. And I have not yet played the expansion. It's one that's on my list of things to do. But it's, again, one of my favorites of the last couple of years. Istanbul, my number 2.
Yeah, I like it a lot. This is certainly kind of a surprise that they got this one at first. It doesn't seem like their other games. It's kind of like their Tempest games. They partnered with Pegasus to bring this one to America.
Right.
My number 2 is Eric's number 7, and this is one of the games I think that really put AEG on the map, and that's Smash Up.
Yeah.
Such a unique game. At first I thought, oh, it's a deck builder. No, it's not a deck builder. You're just taking 2 decks, mixing them together, and then playing sort of a take-that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not usually a big fan of take-that games, but the way the different decks work together, the silly theming of it all, I just get a big kick out of this one. I love playing it. I look forward to the new factions. Sharks is around the corner. And so that's Smash Up. I just really enjoy it.
Yeah, I like it too. I have not kept current with all of the expansions. I never got the big geeky box, so my box is currently full, and I can't fit anything else in it. So I'd have to get the geeky box first, and then whatever I don't have yet. But it's a lot of fun. An area control game that plays quickly and has a little bit more chaos than your typical area control game. A lot of fun.
And finally, number 1.
Number 1 for me is Tom's number 10, and that is Guildhall, a game that fascinates me. You are collecting cards in different types, so you might have the beggar cards, and then there's the dancer cards and the merchant cards, and they come in different colors, and you're trying to get sets of all of the colors of these cards. There's, I believe, 5 colors. And once you do that, you compress these and put them away and use those to purchase victory cards to win the game. But as you are building these sets, they become more powerful. And every time you play more of them, they do some sort of action. And the more you have, the more powerful they are. So you kind of want to keep them around because they let you do awesome things. But at the same time, you're trying to get the complete sets to score points to win the game. And then stealing from other players and manipulating the board situation. It's lots of interlocking mechanisms and a whole lot of fun. I love Guildhall, my number 1.
Guildhall is great. Don't let the cover fool you.
It's not just about pigs.
There are 2 boxes of it. They are pretty much identical. They're not identical, but it doesn't matter which one you buy.
Correct.
So don't worry about, am I getting the right set? You'll have fun with both sets. You can even mix them together. I've done that. I've actually mixed everything together and played one giant Guildhall pile.
Ooh.
And it works. It works. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. But
it does work. And it's just a simple, and it's one of the most unique games that they've come out with.
Mm-hmm.
But the designer, Hope Huang, is one of those unique, interesting designers.
Cool.
My number 1 was Eric's number 6, and that's Thunderstone Advance, which is similar to Thunderstone. They just kind of cleaned up the rules for the game and changed a lot of things in it. I really like Thunderstone. It was the first major deck builder that came out after Dominion. Basically, the designer said, I like Dominion, but it should have a theme. And that's what it did. We went on a dungeon crawl. And I always liked Thunderstone. When Thunderstone Advance popped out, and I played a game with Richard Launius, and he introduced Epic Thunderstone to me.
Yep.
And then I modified that a bit and tweaked it, and other people did too on the internet. And in fact, we have credit for it in the new rule book, which is very nice of AEG. But I'll give most of the credit to Richard Launius. It was just so much more fun that way. Oh, I loved it. Advanced added some rules that made the game more streamlined and better. I still have this one. I love it. It's the most diverse deck builder I have because I have all the sets, and I don't use all the cards. I mean, I use all the cards, but only a few of each. And so every game is just a very different thing. Thunderstone is also a closed deck builder from AEG, but I think it had slightly bigger legs than Nightfall did.
Yeah, I think more people are playing it. It's interesting how they did the advanced set after having so many expansions for regular Thunderstone. And it sort of eventually negated the original because they would release some of the best cards from the original Thunderstone in advanced version. And while it's technically compatible, you can mix the cards. Advanced just is so much cleaner and the graphic design is stronger.
Well, I'd say it actually is completely compatible. The only reason I switched out and I got rid of my Thunderstone cards was because it just bothered me that they look so graphically different.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm close to parting with my original Thunderstone cards.
This is one of those things where, you mentioned that it could be a whole topic in of itself, is what do you do when a company has made all these expansions for an edition of a game? Can they not upgrade that edition?
Yeah.
It just happened to Runebound was just updated for Fantasy Flight, and they made a ton of expansions for Runebound 2nd edition. Mm-hmm. So should they not make a 3rd edition? It's
right.
Interesting.
Yeah. Police Precinct ran into this. They had a number of mini expansions for the 1st edition, and they tried to make it so that the 2nd edition, while being an upgrade, was still compatible with everything that had been released up until that point.
Well, let's see what our contributors think.
This is Trent Howell with the Board Game Family, and our family favorite game from AEG is Thunderstone Advance, taking deck building to a new level where we can level up our heroes and go into the dungeons to fight monsters and get victory points that way. That's got a cool theme for deck building. We love Thunderstone Advance.
Jonathan from the Snakes Cast. AEG's games are a bit of a mixed bag at Snakes and Lattes. There's some of them that you would expect to be really good fit for a cafe environment, like Cheaty Mages or Guildhall, and they somehow just seem to kind of go over a bit flat. Maybe it's the art direction, I'm not sure. But others like Smash Up do really great for us. And then, of course, there's Love Letter. I mean, there's nothing better for converting people who are used to just playing Monopoly and Cards Against Humanity.
Hey everyone, this is Tim Jeanette the Mental Meeple, and my favorite AEG game is Clout Fantasy. It's a CCG that's been dead for a while. The catch is they're poker chips, and you build a little deck of 15 poker chips, and they have stats on them, and you throw them on a flat surface, take turns, and it's got a dexterity element. They get close to each other, they fight and everything. It was just a lot of fun. Really expensive at the beginning, but if they came out with a board game version where it had everything, it'd be awesome. Anyway, if I went with a board game, I would say Russian Crush. Till next time, keep on rocking and rolling dice.
This is Brian from Cult of the Old. Head nods to Love Letter and Clout Fantasy. The game itself is good, even though its pricing and distribution method killed the game, but I'm going to go with Thunderstone Advance using the Epic variant. It's still one of my favorite games. I love deck builders, and the flavor here is really well done. And for the love of all things holy, would someone please make an app of this? I'd pay a pretty penny for it.
Hello chap, it's Barry Doublet here. I've just recently recorded my top 50 games that I like playing, and in there is one game from AEG called Thunderstone Advanced. This is a deck building game where you're building a deck, and I love building decks. You'll be using your deck to go into a dungeon and fight monsters, or you'll be going down to the village and buying some little earrings and pieces like that. The game comes with a bucket load of cards, so there's a lot of replayability. And another fantastic thing is that it has a one-player solo mode. Woohoo!
On behalf of the Four Corners of the Board, this is Mr. Green. And from AEG, my favorite game is Love Letter. I hope the princess receives mine.
This is the Red Corner. So my favorite game from AEG is Thunderstone Advance. How can you not love defeating the evil?
And this is the Gray Corner for Four Corners of the Board. Although I really love heavy strategy games, my favorite game from AEG is Smash Up. I just love all the different combos you have with all those decks.
Hey, this is Paul Owen of Dice Tower News. I have to admit, I have more AEG games in my wish list than in my collection. But the one I like best is the go-to filler game for my wife and me, the quintessential micro game, Love Letter. Sometimes the tactics are transparent, but sometimes you can get inside your opponent's head and pull off the psychic guard or the countess bluff. Now, what's all this talk about Istanbul?
Hey, this is Marty and Tony from Rolling Dice and Taking Names, and Thunderstone Advance is my top AEG game. When Dominion first came out, I thought, wow, what an exciting mechanic, deck building. But it was Thunderstone that took it to the next level for me because it showed me ways that mechanic can be used to make a really great thematic game where you're going out and fighting monsters, and I love the fantasy theme, and all the expansions just made the game even better. Tony?
Well, I don't think I can add much to that, Marty, and so I'm glad you went first because other than that, I'd be probably saying the same exact thing. So no sense to repeat what you said. Thunderstone Advance, that's my favorite AEG game as well.
Hi, it's Andre here from Talkers Reviews. AEG, do they have anything else than Love Letter? I think so. Oh yeah, they have The Valley of the Kings. It's a very good game by Tom Cleaver. I like it a lot. It's a deck builder game, basically. It gives you a lot of control in a small box. So Valley of the Kings is my pick for AEG games. And Love Letter.
Hey guys, it's the Broken Meeple here. AEG, usually king of the filler games, but this one is one of their first games I ever purchased, and it's still in my collection with umpteen amount of expansions to make this a giant heavy box, which is a bit of a pain to carry around, I must admit. This one allows you to take two races out of geekdom history, set them against each other in a big war zone, and let them just go nuts. Of course, it's Smash Up. Smash Up Pretty Princess, Smash Up Cthulhu, Smash Up 9000 level, Smash Up Geeky Box, Smash Up Munchkin, you name it. Pretty much everything you can think of could be in this box if it's not already, or is going to be in this box if not already, because, let me put it this way, I've put every single expansion into the Geeky Box, there's still half the box left. But this is a quality, little nice beat-em-up game, nice beat-em-up card game. Just don't play with 4 players and you've got yourself a hit.
Hello, this is Tom Kendrick with The Board Game Club. In regard to the top 10 AEG games, well, I'm a big fan of Sail to India, and I love, Love Letter, but my favourite AEG game is Trains, a sublime deck builder that feels so right. For me, cutting above Dominion with the interactivity of the board and the elimination of the awkward certain number of actions per turn to keep track of. So for me, Trains tops the billing.
I think the contributors agree with me there.
Well, they certainly seem to, yes.
I'm really feeling that.
You're feeling the love? That's fine.
Let's see what the people said. Number 10 for People's Choice was Nightfall.
All right.
Which was actually my number 12, by the way. Number 9 was Doomtown. So
okay.
I'm curious how many people are playing Doomtown Reloaded.
Apparently enough to put it as number 9.
That's true. Number 8, Thunderstone. Number 7, Thunderstone Advance.
Okay.
I didn't combine those because I don't know if I should or not. If you feel they should be combined, whatever. They still went on to pass number 1.
Okay.
Number 6, Guildhall.
Nice.
Eric's in the house. Number 5, Valley of the Kings. Number 4, Istanbul.
There we go.
Number 3, Trains.
All right.
Number 2, Smash Up. And number 1, by a mile, Love Letter.
Yeah, all right.
It's amazing people's love of Love Letter.
Probably all those different versions, too.
Yeah. So, hey, well, if you want Love Letter, I think you just bought the black box for AEG. I heard you got it in that. That did not seem to go over well. I haven't heard too many positive comments. It was essentially many of AEG's micro games. That's something AEG has been pushing more than any of the other major board game companies. They've been really pushing the little micro games.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those little bags.
I haven't seen any of these other micro games take off like Love Letter did. Even Legacy, or whatever it's called, the sequel to Love Letter.
Lost Legacy,
right. Has not done as well.
I've enjoyed a lot of them. Empire Engine was one that I liked a lot.
No, I like these games too. I'm just saying that I think there's after you play like 5 micro games in a row, you're like, this is all starting to blur together.
Yeah, okay.
Well, folks, that's it. That's another show. Yay! In only 2 shows, our next top 10 list will be top 10 games of 2015.
Oh, boy. That's a 2-parter.
What's going to be on that list? I know. I've already made my list.
What?
But we'll see. All right, folks, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 435, was recorded on December 3rd, 2015. Coming up next week, when have you played a game enough to let it leave your collection? Find out what our contributors have to say. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Jason Roth, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Storytelling Shriners provided by Tail Fezzers. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at thedicetower@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including the Out of Game podcast, 20 Minutes of Filler, the Push Your Luck podcast, the D6 Generation, Board Game Brawl, the Geek All-Stars, Blue Peg, Pink Bag, and Dice Tower Showdown at DicetowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. You know, Tom, I think if we were still doing the scoring, I think I would have won the People's Choice.
I'm in a generous mood. I'm going to give this one to you.
Oh, thank you.
But the contributors have my back.
All right, that's fine. You can have them. I'll be the voice of the people.
You do. Eric Summer, voice of the people. Z Garcia, take a back seat.
We can be the face of the people.
Ah.